How now, brown cow? How now, brown cow?
Isn't he doing like the scotch? There you go now. Down into my belly. I think it's on that table.
Your name is Lanolin?
Like sheep's wool?
Like sheep's wool? Lanolin? Maybe don't wear a bra next time. No. You keep your bra on.
I want to be friends with it.
I want to be friends with it.
What?
Can you open that?
With what?
The arsonist. The arsonist had oddly shaped feet. The arsonist.
The human.
What does he put on the? Somebody puts it on the
bankroll.
teleprompter and he reads it.
Off, San Diego.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, "Damn it! Who put that on the prompter?
He'll
read anything." And he's like, "Good night, crew. That was excellent.
That was excellent.
Good work.
Ship shape.
So do you want me to have the ears?
Great job. On the floor, too.
Great job, everyone."
Welcome to the White Knuckle Podcast with your hosts, Jason Science and Dr. Clint McCoy.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the White Knuckle Podcast, episode number 122. Tonight, I've got a whole table full of guests. I've got to my right, the one, the only, Dr. Clint McCoy. To my left, not a doctor, Justin Snedden.
Not a doctor.
And to his left, the world famous Zach Dimmick.
Good morning.
Wow. Who's running the board tonight?
I know, right? That's awkward.
Awkward silence. That's
It is.
great for radio.
It is. So, hey, we're here in Boscobel, Wisconsin. We did our shed hunt.
The
Amidst all that's
turkey hunting capital of the world.
Right. Amidst all that's going on in the world today. We did this shed hunt sort of to, I guess, get us all together. And
It's like a rally around the family moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scott Buckley was down in Iowa doing it. Lucas Psycho out in South Dakota?
Yep.
North Dakota.
we had a whole bunch of people message throughout the day, which was great. It's just great to see the support from the hunting community that, you know, I guess a lot of folks don't get to see. It's a bigger family than we think.
Yep.
And oftentimes we lose sight of that. So let's talk about who found what.
I'll just get it out of the way right now. Justin Snedden found 0.0 sheds.
But you had a
Great time.
Great
I did get to witness some excellent old school stands, whitetail stands that we will probably talk about later on, but that was the highlight.
Let's just go there right now.
You're going right in? Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about that because
scrap the shed hunting then.
Josh and Clint had a nice dialogue there while we were on top of the hill, huh? Yeah.
You know, don't you know, they're getting that accent down. I've got to get off my Southern Illinois drawl up here, and it's coming.
Like, I really noticed the Southern Illinois draw when he said, "How long you figure? No. How long you reckon that's been there?" I'm like, wow, he just went reckoning on us.
Throw a y'all in and
Right.
We don't do a lot of y'alls
No?
where we're at. We're still above the Mason-Dixon line enough.
Are you a soda or a pop guy? Or are you sody pop or soda pop?
I like sody pop.
Sody pop,
Yeah.
okay.
Or sody.
That's Southern.
Yeah.
Why is so D?
I don't know.
I
Soda.
never heard that.
I'm a pop guy. I'm going to drink a pop.
I call it sody.
Grab me a pop.
Yeah.
Give me a soda. Yeah.
Isn't there like a YouTube video with the cold pop lady?
I don't know that one.
Went to go get myself a cold pop.
I thought someone was
Somebody's
barbecuing.
Yeah, that's it.
Said,
That's
Lord,
it.
I got to run for my life.
I didn't grab no shoes or nothing, Jesus.
Like her apartment was
missing
burning
out.
down, and we're laughing about it. But I'm just not certain that's. In retrospect, it's funny.
Everybody was fine.
Tell us about that giant stand, the old school.
Well, the first, like the 60-footer, or do you want to go right to the stand?
Build it.
Maybe 50 yards down off of a ridge top.
Giant
Got
bur
a
oak.
Giant bur oak. There's maybe a 40 foot of not just like tower stack. It's like radio tower stack with I don't want to get into the good part yet, but you've got some wood blocks hammered into the side of the tree. That eventually failed, so they put up the radio tower to climb up. Then there's 7 or 8 straight boards to stand on, I'm guessing, or maybe to sit on. And then the whole works is held together by wire. Now, we're not talking baling wire or copper wire. We're talking barbed wire at the very top. 28 feet up, the whole works is held together by a 20-foot strand of barbed wire.
And this tree just isn't any other tree. It's not like a straight tree with a tiny fork in it. It's like a tarantula with branches that is 50 foot tall. It is wild and gnarly up top there. And there's this like one little span where, somebody's underneath it going,
I can get up there.
I
Yeah.
think I can get there. Like super mobile hunting back in the day.
For me, the best part was when we went down there. You obviously see the tower, but then you start looking at. You were pointing out to me how it was built, but you've got the blocks screwed or hammered into the side. There's 2 of those, and then like maybe there used to be a limb here that you could stand on, and another limb, and then nothing. Everything that was up there just died, so they obviously had to throw the radio tower up. And
Well, they had a gut hook step too.
yes, yeah,
But the gut hook step was like the tree was like slowly engulfing.
like an old like a screw-in Ameristep that was originally maybe 7 inches long, and now it's only 3.5. It's it was dangerous looking.
I think the tree had it firmly held.
Yeah.
At the base of this radio tower.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Like it's on this steep hillside, and me as a flatlander from the prairie of southern Illinois, like these are mini mountains to me. So it's on the side of this hill, and somebody who hiked this giant radio tower in says, we need a shim because of the side of the hill. So on one leg of this radio tower, they put like
A shim.
It's a block
of wood that's not tied to anything, just underneath it.
Yeah.
And there's a bullet hole in it, like in one
There's
of the.
2 bullet holes actually. I think you have a picture of that.
I definitely have a bullet hole picture of, like it's clearly a slug or a rifle shell had gone through there, like at some
Twice,
point.
2 of them. Heavy fire, as they.
Heavy fire, as Barrett puts it, like for real. But barbed wire at the top.
But we were shed hunting with the gentleman that put it up, and then you had said we were basically the last generation of people that put stands up like that.
Built their own. We're dying breed, man. Showing our age.
Everything that's right when manufactured stands started getting built.
That was a highlight.
It was.
That was cool.
And there was several.
Where we were standing, where you first saw that stand looked like it if there'd ever been a 75-foot deer stand in a tree,
That was it.
like, that's it.
Yeah, we were deep
It was
in the
kind of the
gorge.
hill, the way it accentuated the features of it. It wasn't quite that tall, but it was the most ridiculous looking thing I'd ever seen in the woods from 50 yards away.
It is absolutely the sketchiest tree stand I have ever seen in 28 years of being a field. Like,
I want to be friends with it.
somebody's got to pack all that in. Like just a giant.
40-foot radio tower.
They didn't have UTVs and all that stuff back then.
No.
Maybe three-wheelers.
A 3, yes.
Big Red.
Big Red.
Death trap on wheels, man. If you survive Big Red, you can survive.
That was the
anything.
thing. They brought it in on Big Red, and then they didn't care about, like, well,
Like, we made it
got
back here. What could happen
what
now?
could happen now?
Imagine being in that stand, and you look, like, to the north, and that was that field top where the standing corn still was. And that would be, you'd still be 20 feet off the ground, maybe. And then you look off towards the ravine, and it's just
Like you're in outer space.
Yeah.
an abyss of
Like
that ridge
oxygen
line.
bottle territory. Yeah.
Like you're in orbit.
And I like seeing those sites in the timber. Like, as all joking aside, is there some practicality to this? Yeah, I think so. Like, every time I see at home a homemade, like some old timer years ago with no cell cameras and social media and aerial maps and topos and this, that, and the other, right? If somebody has hiked in enough lumber to start his own deck off of his house and built the stand there, it's probably a pretty dang good spot. You might want to take note of that and run back up in there with a set of your own.
And like I told the guy who put the stand up, that was the most concentrated area of beds that I've found in a day and a half of walking here was right there.
There's still a beat down trail that runs right underneath it.
Been that way for years,
It's
probably.
and you know the woods has changed a lot since that stand's been there, but the terrain hasn't. And deer are deer. They're gonna.
And you couldn't just go to, like, now, you can order a stand off Amazon and have it at your house in 2 days or a day, or run to Blaine's and buy one, or you couldn't even do that then. 1992, like, they weren't available.
So a lot of those old stands are in great spots because they're based on the terrain features, not the latest sign or, that field was probably farmed at the time, but still that was the
Probably a
spot
hayfield.
coming into that whole field where he felt like he needed to be bad enough to haul a 40-foot tower back there.
Yeah. Be miserable.
Yeah, I would say he had some good intel to drive him to do that.
And there was an even older stand 20 yards up the hill that had screwed wood steps into it, and then it was like an old 2x6 strung across 2 limbs, and it was still sitting there.
With no seat.
Nothing.
And not to give away any secrets, but I believe he said he killed 150 right near there
Yeah.
He did.
this year.
This year.
He did
So-
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
He also did say that he was comfortable hunting out of those until his son started hunting with them. And then he started buying TMA stands and probably felt a little better about having his kids up there instead of like, hey, if you're going to fall, just grab a piece of that barbed wire. It'll hold you.
Hey, let's talk about some shed hunting.
Okay.
Any
I'm
major
out 'cause-
takeaways from the
Me.
weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. My major takeaway was that you got to put on a lot of miles to find a lot of sheds.
You really do.
And I don't care how many people are in the timber with you, that does not equate to sheds. We walked most of today, and we found how many before lunch?
I found one before lunch. Did anybody else?
I found one before lunch.
You found
Clint?
one
Yeah.
right
so,
away
so we had
today.
2 before lunch. I found 3 after lunch, all within 10 minutes of each other. You found
Yeah, match toward the end of the day.
I found that dinker after lunch.
Yeah, so that's 6 inside of 3 hours. Yeah, it was a good time. It was good to be back out there and see what the deer had done and how they'd done it and all that good stuff. I'm curious to get you guys' take on the land overall. How obviously it's in sharp contrast to what your normal what you're normally hunting back home. And we've talked a little bit about this, but you know, now that I've hunted this kind of stuff for 3 or 4 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever. I'm just curious to get your thoughts on any takeaways that you would maybe put to use coming back here hunting.
Yeah, so to set the stage, this is hill country, classic hill country, right?
Yep.
And it's
Bluff country.
it's there's some I hunt in the prairies of southern Illinois where there's nothing like the terrain that there is here, like not even remotely close. This is completely out of my element.
The first day we were here, you would say I would call these mountains.
Yeah. If it's a giant hill that I have to stop before I have a stroke walking up them, and there's rocks sticking out of them, I would call them a mountain. And I have to get out of the mindset of like I'm hunting flatland sheds today, or flatland deer or whatever, and it's way different for me. Like I was using a lot of those like those transition trails that are seemingly parallel with contour lines. It seemed like every trail that I was on, every shed that I picked up was on a classic trail that was parallel with a contour line. And I don't know if that holds water or not. I may be completely reading it wrong. But and not only that, the sign that we have here, there's so much timber that I feel like the sign was very dense and concentrated in one spot, and you will go for literally miles with an S plural before you see more concentrative sign like that. But when there is sign, it is stacked on top of one another. Like where I'm from, like there's a tiny little rub here and there and here and there, and it's dotted all over the place, and it's I feel like super concentrated. But you know, you guys probably saw the same thing.
Mm-hmm. But the similarities that I saw were, you know, terrain features at home where I expected, like if I was walking at home, like, oh, this is shaping together. There should be beds here on this point. Same here. It's just instead of that point being 10 feet higher than the surround, you know, it's just the terrain is bigger, but the deer seem to relate to it in a similar way to the terrain features at home.
I would think that's probably pretty accurate. I would say that, you know, having hunted plenty of farm country growing up, they don't relate to the terrain, I think, as much as they do here, but that's just because there's more terrain.
It's more subtle.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
we are. But a point is always a point. A
Right.
hump is a hump. You know,
It's just
a
how big it is.
south-facing
Right.
area is south-facing everywhere you go. And The tops of the ridges are just a lot harder to get to here, I found, for some reason.
Yeah.
Because they're 300 feet above the bottom.
Yeah.
Instead of 50, 60, like at home.
The one that is beneath, well, where the blue car and the semi trailer are, that's a 460-foot difference.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the big differences I've seen hunting Iowa versus here. There's nowhere in Iowa where the terrain just stops. Like I walked out onto a saddle today, and I'm following a trail, looking around for sheds, and then I look up, and it's not a cliff face, but it's just a sheer like, nope, they're not going there because the land just stops and goes damn near straight down. We don't have a whole lot of that in Iowa where I hunt. It's, broken timber and stuff, but the elevation here is a bit different.
Beautiful country, though.
It's phenomenal. I was struck by the terrain, how the terrain influences what grows where with sunlight. You can clearly see on south-facing slopes that there are going to be more of those intermediate shade-tolerant trees like oaks and hickories and stuff like that, and those faces will be just loaded with mass trees and probably producers of mass because they get a lot of sunlight. And you get over on like one of those sheer slopes that are just drop off sharp after a saddle or something like that, and if they're catching some sun, it's a bunch of brush.
Mm-hmm.
It's just as far as your eye can take you to the bottom. And so that creates, it creates what I would consider vegetative transition lines in the timber that aren't necessarily parallel with contour lines, but they kind of are. Like they're edges within the timber, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And there's a huge difference between, being on a north-facing slope or a north-facing side of it with a northwest wind. You could come up over the top of one of those ridges, and it's a 20-degree temperature difference.
Mm-hmm.
The wind's whipping up that ridge, and it just, you could see, like, hey, why are there deer on the south-facing side? Well, it's 40 degrees warmer over here. There's no wind, and it's sun hitting you. It'd be a pretty easy choice.
When you hunt up here, Jason, with like where we hunt, us three, you look at the forecast and you'll see the prevailing wind direction, and you can pretty much use that as a guide on what you think that's going to do, and structure will make it do different things. But here, structure is a completely different animal. Like, do you even look at what wind direction you're going to get for the day?
Yeah, for
around
sure.
here?
Yeah, you still, I don't think you do it any differently than you would. I guess the one thing that I've learned that I had been told 100 times prior to even hunting this kind of terrain was that to stay out of the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Stay out of the bottom. There's a reason that all that sign is there, because that's where they're not going to get smoked.
Mm-hmm.
So I've learned to stay out of the bottom. As badly as I'd love to go in there, and as many excuses as I can come up with to go in there, I've just I've learned to not do it. Kyle and I, when Kyle was here this year and filmed for a couple days, we went and sat down by the blue car, and one deer got through. And I'm like, wow, maybe this spot isn't. Maybe it's just one of those special spots that you're not going to get winded. No, it didn't take long, and everything that came by winded us. So that was the first and last time I sat there. So yeah, I watched the wind. You have to watch. There's a lot. there's a lot of things you can't get away with, and then there's a lot of things you can get away with. If you're sitting on one of those huge cuts, at night, your scent's going to pull down there.
That's
Right.
the other thing.
Thermals.
We don't have to worry about, it's always in your mind in the evening. Where we're at in Iowa, the wind always right around sundown switches out of the east. We get a 10 or 15 minute calm down, but it always blows out of the east. I don't worry about thermals. It doesn't
Here they
factor
kill you.
in. Yeah, here,
They kill
is
you.
it mountains? No. You have to worry about thermals, though, so kind of it is.
Yeah, I could see some of these hills being big enough that, sitting in a stand all day probably wouldn't be a great idea because of the difference in the thermals from morning
constantly
to
changing.
evening. If you had a consistent wind direction, I would think it would almost, it's going to be wrong for you
Right.
either in the evening or the morning.
I've never had a time where if I'm even on, Dan Infalt talks a lot about that 1/3 military crest, whatever you want to call it. If I'm, there or above that, you can generally play the wind. Outside of that, you're going to get 40% of the time that the prevailing wind is going to be correct, and the rest of the time it's
Right.
just a crapshoot. You just don't know. So it just, in so many ways, it limits your options. Even though, I've got a ton of land to hunt. You start to look at things and you can find 100 reasons not to sit there. Where we ended up right at the end of the day. It's beautiful. But the only spot that I can, where we stopped the UTV there, I think you saw the stand that I had there. That's the only spot that I could think of to put a stand and just hunt the edge and pray that one walked out before it was dark. And one, I didn't get to hunt it, I think, 2 or 3 times. But clearly there's deer using that.
Yeah, and access here is I keep going back and trying to relate to home field tactics we use in Southern Illinois, and it's easy for us when it comes to access, or sometimes, it's pretty straightforward. And, you get down in a creek basin and you trim it out, and it's your subway, it's your tunnel. But here, to get to the subway tunnel, you have to dive down 500 feet into the bottom, and you're blowing things off of ridges and everything else. Access is super difficult to negotiate here, I'd figure.
I'm pretty lucky in that, other than coming up from Josh's we have been, I'd normally never go that way. I always come in on the opposite side where we actually rode in tonight on those fields, and I come in on the top side. So I can get to all of that stuff. And he could too, and just come in on my side of it. But he comes up that hill, and he's not really compromising a whole lot because you guys saw that there's just not a lot of bedding in there. But when you hear your folks in this area talk about top access, that's a big deal to be able to come in
Right,
on
I
those
could see
open
that.
fields.
Yeah.
You might have a great property, but if you didn't have access from the right direction, it could be terrible.
It could,
Virtually impossible.
right? Because if you're coming in,
Right.
if you're coming in from the bottom, it's not so much that the wind's going to get you or anything like that. It's they're going to see you.
Yeah,
Right.
Don't skylight yourself. Okay, good luck. When we dropped them off and we rode in, as soon as we got out, 2 does squirted out. You just can't not get skylighted.
Right.
It's just a matter of fact. So if you could come in from the bottom, that's great. But some of those bottoms, you're talking 2 properties over before you actually got to the bottom.
Right. Yeah, so it's a little bit challenging. It's a little bit mentally challenging because there's so many aspects that you have to consider before you make a decision to sit somewhere. But I think at the end of the day, it's like anything else. You can overthink it, and sometimes I do, and That's maybe why I haven't killed one here yet.
That's what we're here for, is to overthink deer hunting.
Right.
That's what I enjoy most in life.
Overthinking deer hunting. So
I had a hard time, like, where, again, going back to home field and stuff, where we hunt in broken farm ground, it's pretty predictable where I think, if I can sometimes look at an aerial and go, I think a buck's probably going to bed in this little thumb that sticks out, and their edge bedder is where we're at. Everybody thinks that these big bucks, they live in the deep, nasty timber, and it's just not the case. They edge bed where we're at, and watch to and from traffic and access on farm lanes and stuff like that. But these bucks here, I was having a hard time in this country, like getting a feel for predictability of bedding. And that match set I found there toward the end this evening, it was clearly a set that had, I think, fallen off of a buck as he was in his bed. They were laying right on top of one another, and they weren't like strung 3 or 4 feet like he's up and running and moving, and they bounce. They were like literally touching each other. And it was on this long, gradual slope, and he was up high where he could see forever below him, and he could catch that wind and thermal over his back, and he's got a ton of advantage there. But it wasn't like that classic buck bed tuck up against a log or a cedar or a conifer or whatever. Like, it was just a random, like, sit down spot where I can see everyone and everything. And if a bad guy's coming, I've got a million avenues to bail before he even knows I'm here. And it's got to be super tricky in this kind of country.
super tricky indeed.
Is anybody else tired from walking the last day?
Not me.
I'm not tired.
I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I can. I see it in your eyes.
The last hike we did, we dropped you guys off, rode the wheeler in. Me, Jason, and Dave walked in, and Jason's like, all right, let's fan out, and we'll go around this ridge, and then we'll cross that ravine, and we'll go up, and we'll meet those guys. Him and Dave did that, and I looked at the ravine I had to cross, and I was like, I'm good. Just going to hike back up to the wheeler and wait for someone to call me and tell me where to drive. I had enough. I had enough of Wisconsin hill country for the weekend.
These hills here are hard to walk down
Yeah.
as they are to walk up.
Yes.
It's tricky.
It's
Yeah, and
uncomfortable.
you got all them stupid softball-sized limestone balls.
Quartz or whatever the heck it was.
Quartz.
Barrett
took a great big slab of that when we were up there around that match that I found, and we were on a great big long gradual down to we could see the bottom from where we were at, and it was 250 feet probably, and he just took a great big rock. He's like, I want to see how far this thing can go. And he flipped it up on its side and rolled, and buddy, it went all it went all the way to the bottom. I'm talking jumping logs like Dukes of Hazzard. It was going. It was crazy. We're not used to that at all. We are not in Kansas anymore, man. Like, it was out of my element, but I dug it. I love getting out and seeing. Sometimes at home, I get maybe bored with seeing the same things all the time.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
You know, like, you've been through your spots and you've chopped them up 100 different ways and you've analyzed them till you're blue in the face, and you get on a spot and it's just like, I'm not super into this. It's you get into timber like this, and have a hard time keeping my eyes on the ground where the sheds might be.
That's why I didn't find any.
Because I'm looking everywhere,
checking
at the
out
scenery,
the views.
yeah, and the old stands and the rubs and the scrapes and potential buck beds and the saddles and the rocks and stuff. Like, it's a lot to take in for a couple of days.
It was a great time, though.
It was. It was good to get together and You know, I'll be honest, there was a point at the end of the day there where we took pictures that just with that white knuckle hat there and a big pile of sheds. It was tough.
It's good though.
It is.
It was good.
Definitely.
We're building new traditions, you know.
Right.
Todd would appreciate that.
He definitely would.
And I think he would love that, you know, we all, you know, we sacrificed to make it up here because we wanted to get together as a team. You know, we're a team, but we're all spread out.
And
it was great to, you know, actually get together and, you know, eat food and hang out and laugh and practice wrestling moves on each other. And
right.
The figure 4 made a debut.
Social distancing. We were
practicing. We probably shouldn't be talking about wrestling and stuff.
Wrestling moves.
Well, you know, we were in groups smaller than 10. So,
That's true. That's true.
You know, a battle royal doesn't start to 30.
Okay.
So we're good. We're good.
Let's talk about Clint's affliction with pro wrestling.
I'm a closet pro wrestling fan.
I don't know anything. I know nothing about it to be able
I know
to
about
even,
Hulk Hogan.
Rib
Okay,
you.
so
Yeah,
Hulk
me too.
Hogan,
Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant. That's where it starts and stops for me. I have no.
I was a Hulkamaniac as a kid.
I wasn't. I don't know what like.
Okay, self-professed Hulkamaniac, and you know, you give him the 3 punches, the big boot, shoot him off the ropes, big boot, drop the leg. It's over. It doesn't matter if it's Andre laying in the ring, Ricky Steamboat, Roddy Piper. It doesn't matter. They're going down.
Wasn't it
leg.
Rowdy
Roddy Piper.
Roddy.
Piper.
Roddy.
Roderick Piper. Yeah.
Oh, Roderick. Now I get it.
His finisher was the sleeper hold, by the way.
I have a different finisher, I guess.
I hear listeners dropping off like flies about right now.
At any rate, the figure 4 did make a debut.
I think I grew up in like an actual wrestling household. Like all my uncles and dad and cousins and everybody were like high school wrestlers or college wrestlers, so it was always frowned upon to be that was even mentioned in the same category as wrestling or pro wrestling. So it was always
Look, it's still real to me, damn it.
That's I'm with you. I'm just saying that's why that's probably where I had to draw
You know, the
line.
next time we do this, we'll make sure that we get Luke, the young man that was with us this morning.
An actual wrestler.
An
Yes.
actual wrestler. Yeah, wrestler. We'll have him and Clint wrestle.
I'm already going to tell you, that kid looks way tougher than me. Yeah. He could definitely hold his own. I'm sure of that. Yeah, I would gas out in like 10 seconds with him. But, so, yeah, there's that.
Zach, what's your highlight for the trip?
Just being up here, and I kind of thought of this as a team building exercise, and I think it was great for us, you know, some of us core guys that, I mean, me personally, I know it's been a really rough year for White Knuckle, all the things that have went on, and I'm just glad we're going to keep this thing going.
Absolutely.
And this kind of solidifies it for me.
We're gonna
Because I love this thing, this White Knuckle Productions thing, and I really want to see it, you know, go on and thrive. So,
well, I appreciate the effort in getting here in spite of maybe not getting home because roads being
we
closed.
might get arrested on the way home tomorrow.
Just follow Clint. You tell him you're part of the entourage.
Illinois is on lockdown, man. I may be staying a while.
It started
About About 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago.
Yeah, well, I thought it was 8 o'clock.
I need to check my details.
I think you're okay to be driving still.
Till
I think.
he's-
Yeah, you
I
won't,
think you're
we
okay.
won't be the only vehicles on the road tomorrow.
Probably not. Until you see those big National Guard trucks rolling in, that would give me a little heart palpitations there. But
Yes.
yeah,
Or an M16 pointed in your
In your
windshield.
face.
That would be
yeah,
a little bit
difficult.
Hopefully, you just get home and you don't have to deal with that. That'd be much better.
And that's really the highlight of my trip is being away from this. You know, like
Nice distraction.
It was weird though. Did you ever you're out in the woods and looking for sheds or looking at a scrape or a rub line, and then it you snapped back to oh shit.
absolutely.
Oh crap, there's a thing, there's a major thing going on that our parents, our grandparents, at least my grandparents, have never had to wrestle with.
Right. Yeah, I was looking at this great big vine that had broke off, perfectly nose high for deer, and it was this monster community scrape in the middle of God's country up here, right? Super active, and now we're in March, right? And I'm eyeballing this thing, and then I start looking up the trees, man, how would I hunt this if I was going to hunt it? And I stopped, and I'm thinking, it's awful quiet around here, you know. I don't hear any planes. I don't hear any traffic. I don't hear even any, it sounds weird as it sounds, I don't even hear any birds. It is dead still. And I got that vibe, like you were saying, Justin, you know what? There's a lot of stuff going on in the country right now. Stuff that we don't have a clue how it's going to turn out.
Yeah. There's no playbook or, hey, you should do this for it.
But for 2 days, I could just ghost all that and just go do my thing and be normal without all that extra shit.
Yeah.
It was cathartic.
I kept trying to, when my mind would snap back to it, or I'd think about my wife and daughter or whatever, I'd almost try and nope, we're doing this right now today.
Focus. Yes.
You're looking for sheds or not, I'm a terrible shed hunter, but just you're out walking in the woods trying to find
Doing a hug.
trying to find a place where Jason should put a stand up, or where I'm going to put a stand up when I come here and hunt this fall, or it's just a weird time.
That's definitely the highlight for me, just being able to push pause for a little bit. This is normal for me.
Yeah.
Being in the timber, being alone or with like-minded individuals, thinking about, eat, sleep, and breathing deer for a handful of days. It's completely normal for me, but it's not normal everyday 9 to 5 life. It's my other life. It's not what I make money at or anything like that. It's my
Your happy place.
It's my social distancing before it was cool to say social distancing, right? I've
Right.
always been socially distant. Now there's a term for it. And we're all that way, I think, and that was my big takeaway is man, I just got to push pause and just be suck it in and breathe normal, clean air and let it out. And man, I feel pretty good. It's good for me. Liked it.
Yeah, I had a few moments over the last day and a half where, you do kind of get lost just in your thoughts and that of your feet hitting the ground, and you're just, you're just immersed in the environment. And I just stop okay, because we're not talking, we're not hooting back and forth. We're all just out there, and so many times I could figure out where people were just by you'd sit there and wait long enough, and then I'd hear snap, crack. I was okay, he's right down there, and it's just neat to be out there doing what we like, and having that pause from this craziness that's going on. And I felt myself too, starting to it'd creep in you better start thinking about what you're going to be doing Monday. And it's nope,
Yeah.
I'll worry about
That's
that
how
on the
I
way
was.
home tomorrow. We're just doing this thing right now. And that's kind of the way it is every chance I get to be in the woods. It's like you just kind of hit pause on everything else and just let your thoughts roam. And
Be normal
yeah, I feel the most normal
completely.
I think that's
in the woods.
Yeah.
I realize that this is what's going on now is on a much grander scale than the scale of my life and what goes on, every day. But I think that's a large attraction for me to, hunting or being outdoors or whatever the case may be, is just being able to get away. And I wish, more often I could get away and turn my phone off and things like that. But it's just not the world we live in. But
You need to at least figure out how to turn Siri off on your phone.
I
or
know
whatever.
she was absolutely
Obnoxious.
off the hook. Right, she was very unruly.
Every time I walked up to Jason, his phone was like, "I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said."
Like
What?
a dozen times today minimum.
I don't know what happened.
When I first got together with my wife Colleen, and we started our relationship, she saw that I was like super into this deer hunting thing, and she, without saying the words, she kind of put it like, "What's the point?" Like not really what's the point in a sarcastic way, but like what's the end game? What's the goal? Why do you do this? Like in this. With this amount of effort behind it, I don't know. But it makes me feel normal, and I have to feel normal and use it to separate the daily grind from the whitetail woods, and that's the point. Like, there's no magic brass ring that I'm seeking to grab or any kind of weird like notoriety or get famous or this or that or the other. Like, none of that. It's like just being me. Like, when I grew up as a kid, I was really I wasn't athletically gifted. I hated team sports. I even hated working in groups when I was in high school and college. Like, being alone and by myself and being self-sufficient is normal to me. And when I apply that to the whitetail woods, it just makes me feel like I have to keep doing this, even though I don't know that there's an end game goal. Like, that is me, and I have to keep doing it to feel good on the inside and to make everything feel right. And that's what I got. Why we all keep doing this, I think. And so when you look at the stress and strain and difficulty about what's going on in the country right now with this pandemic, man, like, there's a whole hell of a lot of non-normal going on right now. A lot of it. And it's all shrouded in like borderline panic and fear. Like, I felt pretty normal the last couple days.
Me too.
Pretty damn normal.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Like there's times that you were walking out there and you just went, "Oh, there's all of this other stuff," but it was easy to just tune it out.
For me, it would be
shut
like,
it off.
Like, hey, I'm getting hungry. What are we going to do for lunch? And then that's a time when I'd snap back, like, oh, we can't go get breakfast in the morning because there isn't a place where we can sit down and get breakfast. Or, hey, after we're done hiking for 9,000 miles up all these hills, we're going to go eat a steak dinner Oh, no, we can't do that either. Like, that's the stuff that kept kind of like dragging me back into those moments where I was trying to beat them away to focus on what I was here to do. And I would say that's what you were saying about, like, you love white knuckle. And before I was involved in kind of being socially distant, you were that way. I was that's what kind of drew me to white knuckle. Todd was that way.
Oh, he's the ultimate.
That's what I mean. Like, that's why I liked it.
Just
and then to be able to,
unashamed deer nerd, like,
Yeah.
not trying to make deer hunting cool. That's what everybody else tries to do. Like,
yeah,
these are the coolest videos.
Right.
No, Todd was like,
I would watch like you
It's
could
just
watch
real.
a video of Todd dragging a pallet around a ridge top when he's planting corn he just took corn and threw it out and then drug a pallet around. I like those videos are great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not how you're supposed to plant corn, but they're like, but that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what drew me to White Knuckle, and then to be able to be involved in it, and then meet like, what's my highlight of being here this weekend? I get to come spend time with a guy I've known for 30 years, not quite 30, 20 years. His wife, like, old friend, new friends, like that's a awesome highlight. And then to meet you guys or get to know you a little bit better and realize, like, yeah, we're all kind of socially distant guys that do stuff on our own, and we like to do the same things. And that's not weird. I like that.
We got to be alone together this weekend.
Yeah.
Kind of.
It's very much like that. I would agree.
Yeah.
It's like it's fun. We get to the mule and we want to talk about what we did, but then we can't wait to get to the next spot and split up. You know,
Right.
like we want to be alone together.
Yeah.
Let's go out in the hills and not be together, but do it together.
Right.
You know, Zach, you brought up something that certainly is a hot button, and we don't need to spend a lot of time on it, but it's something that I always admired about Todd, and that was, and it's what I guess I, in many ways, wish that I could be better at, and that's just not caring about what other people say, just doing your own thing, right, wrong, or otherwise. I mean, I'm not saying go do irresponsible things or bad things, or but just he did it his way. I mean, I remember when he planted that corn, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's not going to grow, you dumbass," and just took all kinds of heat on the internet for it. And guess what? It didn't grow, and he didn't care.
Right.
It didn't make any difference to him. He just did it his way. It didn't affect his deer season, and I think there's the lesson to be learned there, and I think that's one of the qualities that a lot of people, loved about Todd, and then there's a lot of people that love to hate on, some of the stuff that he did. But
And I bet if you asked Todd if he cared, he would ask you what the heck you were talking about. 'Cause
he
didn't care.
I'm like, what did you think of your show? I didn't watch it. What did you think of my show? I didn't watch it. What do you think of the podcast? I've never listened to one, Jason. You've never listened to one of our podcasts? No. Okay. He's like, I already did it. Like I said, what I was
I
on
was
my
there.
mind.
I don't need to watch
I don't
it
need to
again.
listen to it again.
Yeah.
I know that I heard the story from you about how you killed your buck. I don't need to watch it again. Oh, okay. He was very secure with himself, and that's,
I dig it.
yeah, it's not easy, especially when you're going to put yourself out there like he did.
Yeah.
It translates to that mindset, though, translates to why he was
Killing 7-year-old bucks every year.
right. Like, don't drink the Kool-Aid that's out there to be consumed in popular whitetail culture. Don't try to be the next superstar. Just do your own thing. Like,
And make it count. And he
yeah,
did.
like try something weird if you have to. Like just think outside the box and do your own thing, and not don't get all wrapped up in trying to be the next X, Y, and Z. Just be your only you. Like he was really good about that.
Yeah.
I think he was like everybody always. You hear that phrase all the time. I've never met anyone like so and so, and I think that gets thrown around a lot. I think it's bullshit. But I can honestly say I have never met anyone like Todd. Ever. Like, he was his own entity,
And he didn't care what you had to say about what he was doing. Like, I guess for me, I wish I had that. Like, as I'm getting older, I'm acquiring that mindset or that filter or that skill or whatever you want to call it. I wish I would have had it. Like, I wish I would have had the mindset of that it's okay or that it's cool to, like, not care what Clint thinks about what I did or didn't do. Or if that was one thing I could emulate from, watching Todd or watching white knuckle videos, that's the one thing that I always took away was like, oh, he doesn't give a crap what anyone's going to tell him about this hunt, or, that he trimmed 300 yards of cedar bushes to get to his ground blind, or like, he didn't care. And if it worked, he would do it again. And if it didn't, and he planted 30 acres of corn that didn't grow, he'd figure out a way to do it differently. I like that.
Yep.
There's so many directions we could go with that. I was just sitting here thinking, you just said something about Todd. One of you said something about just Todd, doing off the wall things or whatever, and he didn't care. Like, I think there's a lot of people you're around in your life, and you see this or that, and you don't recognize it for maybe what it is at that time. But I recognized the day that he called me that before he killed Walter Payton, and he told me that he was going to call the neighbor and tell him.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Tell him that he wanted to hunt there, and I said, he's not going to let you. And he's like, I know. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, but I'm going to tell him right where he's betting. And then they're just going to put a bunch of pressure on him and kick him to me. I'm like, you're crazy. This is never going to work. He's like, no, I'm not crazy, and it's going to work. And I'm like, okay, well, you have your little fantasy, and call me when that's done. And he did the next day after he shot him, but I mean, he literally, I think maybe it was 2 days later, he shot the deer.
I think a better way to describe what we're trying to say about
That's
Todd
what I feel
is,
like I can't
instead
get
of
it out.
saying he just didn't care, he was fearless.
Right.
He was not afraid of what people were going to say about him. He wasn't afraid to fail. He was fearless, and
he did it because
that's what my Bible tells me to be. But we struggle with, fear creeps in, and it ruins a lot of things in our lives. And if there was somebody who was not controlled by fear, I would say it was Todd.
Agreed.
He wasn't afraid to be himself. He wasn't afraid to try new things. He wasn't afraid of what people were going to say about what he did.
He wasn't afraid to speak his mind.
He wasn't afraid to bump bucks either. And that's like, if you read and listen to stuff, it's like if you bump a buck, that's they vaporize when you bump them.
They cease to exist.
Yep.
Never
They're
come
gone
back.
forever.
Yeah.
Never come back. Yeah.
And he was fearless.
Yeah.
He was.
And that's an admirable quality.
Yeah. I took away when we were at camera school and he showed us the Walter Payton video, like kind of uncut, and he gets up to him, and I don't know how many times that's been viewed on YouTube.
Just the clip of him walking up to him.
And he loses
over like
his
8 million or something.
Yeah, and he loses himself in the moment. And you get a lot of people that don't understand what we do and how much work and effort that it takes to call your shot like that, like you were saying, on a buck like him.
Right.
And then you're holding the animal, and he's just on another level of, like, the emotion that pours out of him. And it's really easy for me to sit back and go, man, is he putting that on? Is that genuine?
Right.
It's completely genuine. Like, anyone that knew him and knew what was inside of him knew that wasn't no show, man. That was just all the work and preparation and study and analytics and time spent, it was just pouring out of him. And I really respected that, like being super vulnerable in that moment, not caring, as you say, about what everyone else is going to think about the emotion that's pouring out of me now after I've accomplished my goal that I said I was going to do. That's awesome. That was awesome. That was a big lesson for me after seeing that. I was like, man, he's as genuine as it gets when it comes to that. And, there are some people that'll hate on that, like, he's over the top and this, that, and the other. Like, it was real, dude. Like, be real. Be who you are. Be real. And that was real as real gets.
Right.
I think it's easy for people to hate on that, though, because there are so many phonies in this thing that we do that it's easy to pick out, like, okay. Fast
Say
forward.
that every time you shoot one.
Fast forward, or like skip to the next hunt. Next hunt. Yeah. So, like, I can see it, but that's part of, that's part of what was attractive for me to Todd or White Knuckle or whatever, was I never got the sense of like, oh, like you said, oh, he's putting that on. Yeah. Like he's being a phony. There was nothing phony.
Yeah, why would you act like that on
right? Or when he finds a shed and he loses his mind when he finds a shed. Like,
yeah, when he found Walter Payton's shed,
yeah.
I've watched that like 5 times this spring, and I just
he gets
love
all
it.
like high voiced and freaks out, and like you said, why would anyone do, like if you're gonna
put on an act,
that's
No,
not
like,
the,
yeah, right,
If
exactly.
you're putting an act on, you wouldn't put on that one.
Yeah, when you're self-filming yourself finding an antler when no one else is around there,
Right.
like you could kind of rein it in if you wanted to.
Right,
Even if you
exactly.
were like on the inside, you were like flipping out on the inside, you could be like, I'm cool, man. I've been here. I've been to the dance before.
Right.
You don't need to see my
Yeah.
you don't even see my emotions. I'm too tough for that. Todd just blew gaskets when he'd
Yeah.
find that shit. I love that.
Yep. And I think that's another, like, I don't like when, like, hey, act like you've been here. Like, don't go over the top. Act like you've been here. I don't like, let it out. I wear my emotions on my, like, not even on my sleeve. It's just out there. And I guess another thing I liked about Todd, you didn't have to worry about act like you've been here. He is acting like he's been here, and he's losing his mind because he just shot that giant or found that shed or whatever. I dig that.
Like a spiritual event.
Yeah.
Like seriously. You learn a lot from that. And there's a little bit of like there's a little bit of little kid in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, remember when you were a little kid and you shot your first deer and you wanted to parade it down Main Street in the little town that you lived in and show everybody that you knew how successful you were, and there was all that pent-up joy on the inside of you. I think sometimes when we get successful and we get a bunch of them hanging on the wall over us, we get that like, yeah, I'm the man.
Right.
I've been to the dance before.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? And there's that like that little kid in me, and it's still in me, but I'm losing little bits of that as I get older. Todd, I don't think he lost any of it. Like, it was still exacerbatively happy every time he found a shed or, recovered a monster that he shot, and he just let it go.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, guys, we've been here an hour. Well, we've been here more than an hour, but we've been chatting for an hour. I'm gonna go around the table and end with Zach. Any final thoughts, Clint?
I was just real happy to get away. I needed to get away from, I just needed to get here and just to have an adventure. And to go out and actually be successful and find some sheds and land that I'll probably never see again, or see a big old oak tree or a rock that I'll never see again. You know what I mean? And just be normal and honor Todd and put in some work and some miles and find some bone. Best 2 days I've had in a long time.
Amen. Justin?
I think I already said it. My concluder would be just spending time getting to know you guys a little bit better, not on a phone or a podcast, or getting to eat a meal with you, or have Zach rub my leg a little bit. But getting to hang out with an old friend and see some new ground and try and pick out what tree I'm going to be sitting in this fall.
Amen. What? I think that my final thoughts are that it was great to get to see you guys. It's great that we're going to continue this. We're going to have a fun spring. Zach is going to go turkey hunting every day of the spring, I think.
Yeah.
No, we're going to have some turkey hunts coming up. We're going to have obviously the podcast. We're going to have our plan is to do 26 different web shows this year, so watch out for that. We've got some new sponsors. We had Sean from Tethered in today. Shed hunted with us for a while. They're going to be one of our partners. We've got Radix, trail cameras, and that whole family, which now includes Stick and Pick. But just thankful for you guys and thankful for the time that we got to spend in spite of everything that's going on. So, yeah, thank you guys.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thanks for having us.
Zach, before you end it.
To everyone out there, there's going to be great things coming from this group. So listen and watch the stuff we're going to be putting out, because I think it's going to only get better. So, and you're welcome for finding
Mr. Perfect.
Yeah.
Did
Thank
you
you.
find both sides or just
No,
one side?
just one side.
So it shouldn't be really thanking anybody.
Now I'm going to put you on the spot. We normally end the show with whatever our outro is. In spite of everything that's going on, I think it'd be great if you could lead us in
Yeah, I'd
Just
be
a
happy to do
a
that.
short prayer.
That'd be great. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Ready?
All right. Lord, we come to you tonight with we've all got a lot of questions on our mind. What's going to happen with this this pandemic, and the economy. There's just people are scared, and we just need that peace that only you can bring. And Lord, we also realize that this did not take you by surprise, and you know how it's going to end, and we're trusting that you have a plan for our country and people of the world, that we're going to get through this, and we don't know what that's going to look like, but we're thankful that we can trust you for those answers, and that you're here for us in these times when we question, and a lot of people are questioning, and we know that you're in control, that this didn't take you by surprise, and we pray that people will come to you through this major event that's going on, and we're trusting for the outcome that you have planned for us. And thank you for this weekend, this opportunity, and thank you for White Knuckle Productions. Amen.